please don't wake me from this.
What's going on, legends? LGG Alden here. Today I'm back with episode 4 of our Game Maker Studios top-down game tutorials. This episode, guys, will be on GUI, making it based on player variables, all the global variables we have created. Also, a reminder, guys, this series goes up every single Tuesday. To start this off, guys, the main thing we're going to be messing with is the global health variable. So for the player, we're going to be making a health bar, and I'll actually show you guys how to make just a health thing that displays the number. We can use them both at once, but I'm going to show you guys just how to do this, and it's going to involve us using a max health as well, so we know what the maximum is, and you can set that. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a global variable, another one that is max health, so you can just name it, just put a max before it and then HLTH, however you want to name it, and set it to whatever you want the max. So if I want the max to be 10, then the max will be whatever the health is. So the next step you guys are going to want to do is you're going to create an object. Now this object is going to be used to control the GUI, pretty much so we can set one object in a room and it'll run all of our GUI scripts. Obviously we're only going to have one for now, but eventually when we add more GUI, get more advanced with it, we can use this object and just run the scripts from there. So what you're going to do is you're going to want to go into a step event. In the step event, you're going to want to make a script run. So you're going to want to run a script. Now we haven't created it yet, but we're going to act as if we have it. SCR GUI and then do health. So this is going to symbolize for the player's health. It'll draw it, and yeah, that's it. So then you're going to want to actually create the script. As you can see, name it exactly what you named it when you were in the GUI object. In there, we're actually going to make the GUI health bar with the text and all that. So to start it off, to create a background of a health bar is what we're going to do. We're going to need to make sure that it stays directly on the screen. Now, in order to do that, you're going to use views. Now, views are obviously the way the screen moves and all that. I don't think we've had that implemented yet, but once we do, this will make a lot more sense. So we're going to create screen X and Y variables. Now, these are just going to be so that we know where we're on the screen and we don't have to deal with typing out the same thing every time we want to get a coordinate. So in order to do that, you're going to want to do SX or whatever you want to name this. This will symbolize the screen X. You're going to do view underscore X view. As you can see here, you can put it as 0 for now. And then you're going to do the same thing, but name it whatever for Y. And then the same view Y view, and then put it to 0. So those will symbolize the top left corner of the screen. So 0, 0 of the screen. It'll constantly update based on where the view of the X and Y is. So that's why the GUI will continuously stay on the screen instead of when the player moves out of the area, it won't just disappear and whenever we come back, it's there again. So this is how you get a screen variables for X and Y. So now we're going to create the actual health bar. Now you can just give it a comment, just say health bar, just so that we know that we're creating the health bar. Now, what you want to do is you're going to want to set the color. We'll just do red so that we know, it symbolizes a health color. You would naturally think of it, or whoops. You would naturally think of health with red. So we'll set it to red, and then we're going to want to draw a rectangle. Now, with the coordinates, we need the x1, y1, x2, y2, and then true or false variable symbolizing whether it's an outline or not. We're just going to set that as false. We don't want it as an outline. But this is where the X and Y, screen X and Y coordinates actually come into play. So we're just going to prop it over a little bit from the top corner. So we'll do SX plus 16 and SY plus 16. So this will move it over just a tad bit from the top left corner. And then once we do the width, now this is the width, the X2. So we need to make sure that this goes over just as much as it started so that we're not starting prior to it. So SX plus 16, and then you're going to want to add, this is where we're actually going to get the math into it. So whatever we want the max length. Now I think we'll set it to 256. That should be a perfect number. It'll work fine. It's divisible by 32. Divide it by global dot, and then whatever your max health variable is. So max HTLH. So in there, and then you're going to want to times it by your health variable. So HTLH. So the way this kind of to explain how this works is it takes the length that you want it to be, which is 256, divides it by the max health. So say the max health is 20 or 32. It'll divide it by 32, take that number, and then if the health, whatever the health is, if the health was equal to the max health, it'll times it right back what you divided it, making it exactly 256. But if it's not, then it'll find out whatever that number is, times it by that, so then it kind of evenly spaces out the bar no matter what your max health is and no matter what the health is. It'll find it, calculate it, and it'll draw it based on the width of that. So once you have that, then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to do the SY. So the SY we can just do plus 32. So it'll be a 6. Actually, we'll do 48. So then it's 32. So close out of that. And then also, or actually one last thing is, like I said, false. We don't want it to be an outline. And then you'll have your health bar drawn. Now, if you want to get a little bit fancier so that you have a background to it, you can just name it BG bar, whatever you want to say. And I'll make the color to black. That should be fine. And here we go, draw underscore set color, C underscore black. So that'll be fine. And then you're going to want to draw this almost identical. So what we could do is we can actually copy this if you want, because you are drawing another rectangle, except we're just going to have it as 256 because we don't need it to be anything crazy fancy. And from there, what you want to do, just so that we go over a little bit so that you see a little bit of an outline to it, we're going to add 2 to these 2 variables just so that we have an extra 2 pixels, and then we'll minus 2 to these ones so that it goes back 2. So that should work fine. That should draw our health bar, and it'll also draw our background bar. Now, in order to make sure that this GUI renders, what you want to do is you want to make sure that you place the GUI object. It won't have any sprites, so it'll look exactly like this. You can put it next to whatever, the grid object, anything, as long as it's rendered into the world. Eventually, we can take all of these, minimize them into one object, and have it load it when it's started. So it's not like replacing a bunch of these in the room and get them confused. But for now, it'll work fine to have that. So once you have that, you can go ahead and run the game. Guys, before you run it, I noticed one little mistake. Change this to a draw event. That was my mistake. I didn't realize. We set it as a step event. Make sure to change that to a draw event. You can just do it by change event and select draw, just the normal draw, and it'll draw it on the screen. So if you copied it exactly how I had it, that is how it should look up in the top corner. As you can see where my mouse is, right there. Now, we don't have it where we can actually lose health or regen health, so you won't see it go down, but I'll actually change the variables and show you what it kind of looks like based on halfway or 2/4, 3/4, anything like that. So now, for instance, guys, I have the health as 7 out of 10. As you can see, it brought it at about 7/10 or so is how full it is, technically speaking, is what it should be. Now you can make these any numbers you want, and it will calculate what that spacing should be and how it should look. Now we're going to work on making it so that it actually tells you how much health you have, and it'll draw it right in the little box. So you're going to want to go back into the GUI health. Now we're going to draw it after these, only so that it doesn't draw prior to it, and you're going to want to just do draw text. That's fine. So set the color to whatever you want. Probably a really good color if you're using red and black as the background. You would want to do white because it'll show up on the black and it'll also show up on the red good. So then if you put it there, now you're going to want to draw underscore text, and then at the X and Y. So the X and Y, you can put this kind of if you want to position it differently. Now we're going to set this so that it's equal to a little bit further than where the X starts. So the X starts at about 16. We'll have it start at about 32. I'm not sure based on default font. Now you can change these fonts if you want. All you'd have to do is add a font object, and then you would do draw underscore set font, and then enter that font variable. So if you want to make it a bigger font, smaller font, pixelated font, a fancy font, whatever you feel. And then the SY will just do plus 16. Now, I don't know how perfect this is. You might have to mess with it a little bit based on whatever you have your font as, but we'll just set it as this as default. And then you're going to want to actually have it display the health. So you're going to do health, or however you want to label it. If you don't want it to actually say the word health, you don't have to. But this is how you'll actually get the health number. So you're going to do string. Now, currently the health is an integer. So an integer is just a number. We want it to be a string so that it can draw it as font, letters, whatever. And you're going to do string, and then you're going to do global.htlh. HTLH there. And then make sure that's good. So it'll draw it, it'll add it, and it'll constantly update it, constantly draw it. So no matter what the health is, no matter what it changes to, we don't have it changing, but if we were to, it would constantly display it. So we'll run it and see what it looks like. One quick little error, guys, that I did notice is I typed out the HLTH wrong. Make sure not to do that if you're copying me word for word. Try not to do that. That'll crash the game. It won't find anything. It won't have the variable. So make sure that you spell it all right. That would be the reason you would have an error there. So now we'll run it and I'll show you guys what it looks like. So guys, there you have it. As you can see, it shows our health. 7 is what we have it currently set to. Obviously, that won't be changing because the enemies don't attack us yet and we don't have natural regeneration or anything like that. So it shows it as 7 and it is 7 out of 10. Now you could make it so that it says 7 out of 10 if you wanted to. That would only be you just add a string of the max health, and simple as that. Obviously, the font doesn't really line up too well. It kind of looks a lot smaller than it should be. So I'll show you guys some little quick tips on making fonts if you guys don't know how to. I'll use a font. I don't know if you guys all have it, but it's just a simple font, and I'll show you guys making sure so that it, it looks a little bit better on that bar. So in order to create a font, guys, you just want to go create font. Now, if you want to use another abbreviation, you can use FN or FNT. I usually use FNT. Completely up to you, and then you can name it GUI. Now you could get advanced and do GUI small, large, depending on what you're working with. So if you want to set some different fonts up, you can. I'm going to use a pixelated one because I feel like it would actually match very well. The name of the font I'll be using is called TS Font. If you guys have it, I don't know if it's a default Windows font or if it's one that I've downloaded, but set it to whatever size you want. And this is, like I said again, it's a bunch of troubleshooting. You got to work with it. You got to mess with it. If you're using a pixel font, here's another good tip. Turn off high quality, because if you have high quality, then you get the little bit of pixels around it and stuff, and it kind of blurs into it, and it'll look a lot less pixely. So that's how you create the font. And then you're going to go back into your GUI health, and then you're going to make sure to set it. So you could do draw_set and then font. In there, just put the name of the font, FNT_GUI, and run it, and you'll see what it looks like. I ended up troubleshooting mine a little bit, guys, to get the X and Y coordinates right. That's up to you. That depends on the font and the size you use. But as you can see, it looks a lot neater when you have a nicer font. Now, if we have it so that it would change, eventually if you have it so that it changes, actually, if you want to do that on your own, or if you want to wait till a later episode when I show you guys how to do it, you'll see that it'll actually move the red, it'll move the color, and it'll fill up if it's full. It'll go down to negatives if you don't have anything to prevent it, but that's for another day when we work on stuff like that. But the font lined up on it, it'll actually change that number there, constantly updated. So I think it looks pretty nice. That should be your final output, guys. Now, you could make this for anything you want. You could change the GUI. You don't have to have a bar. You could have a bar. You could only have font. It's anything to you, however you want to go about it. Now, you could set this up so that it displays the speed on the screen. You could set it up so it displays your damage, anything like that, however you feel like going about it. But that's basic GUI. That's kind of how it works. In a later episode or a later series, most likely, we'll get into more advanced GUI, making it so a lot of things are moving. You have interactive GUI, different crazy stuff like that. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video though, guys. Another reminder, as I said earlier, this series does go up every single Tuesday, so check back next week for the next episode, episode 5. If you guys did enjoy this though, leave a like. If it helped you, like, subscribe, all of that, so you guys get updated on the next time that a tutorial's out. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to be a legend, and I'll see you guys next time. Let's try it. Oh, come on. Alright, bonfires. Bonfires are large beacons that can mark your character